Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ashley Craiglow, and I am joined today by my colleague Brenda Schaefer-Pellinen with the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging. And we would like to welcome and thank you for joining us for today's session, Aging Solo, Making a Plan for Navigating the Future. Before we start, we're going to go over a few housekeeping items. Oops, sorry about that. We are excited to announce that today's webinar will be accessible to a wider audience. We have arranged for American Sign Language interpreters who will be present throughout the session. These interpreters will rotate every 20 minutes, ensuring that everyone can follow the content effectively. Whether you attend the live webinar or catch up later, you will have the opportunity to engage with the material in a way that suits your needs. We are recording the entire webinar with the ASL interpretation. The recordings will be available on the Arrowhead Agency on Aging YouTube channel for later viewing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with the latest additions to our video library. Please keep your microphone set to mute. Just a note, if you experience any issues with broad bandwidth or audio quality, it often helps to disable your camera. If you have any questions during today's session, please feel free to enter your question into the chat and we will address them at the end of the presentation. We will also take some additional questions at that time. At the close of today's session, you will see a quick evaluation of today's session pop up in your browser. Please take a moment and complete the survey. It helps us greatly when planning for future sessions. We are always looking for suggestions for future webinar topics. If you have any suggestions for topics or speakers, feel free to include those in your evaluation. One quick reminder, visit our Facebook page for more information about other upcoming sessions. You can also check out our website at arrowheadaging.org. If you'd like, you can enter your first name and organization or community that you're from in the chat box and what you're hoping to get out of today's session and how you found out about it. Next, I'm just going to go over a little bit about what the Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging is. The Arrowhead Regional Development Commission and Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging are designated by the State Board on Aging as the Area Agency on Aging for Planning and Service Area under the authority of Title III of the Older Americans Act. Minnesota has 7 AAAs across the state that are local connections to older Minnesotans and the community support they need as they age. The Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging's planning and service area are designated by the Minnesota Board on Aging, includes the counties Aiken, Carlton, Cook, Itasca, Koochiching, Lake, and St. Louis. The Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging is committed to helping older adults maintain their highest level of independence. The AAAs are regional organizations that provide the services, supports, and information just for about anything that older adults and their families could need. Next, I'm just going to take a minute to read our Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging land acknowledgement. As we support our mission to help older adults maintain their highest level of independence, we do this while being respectful of the space we are being welcomed into by Indigenous people. We strive to deepen our understanding of the multiple ways in which people see and understand land and acknowledge the Indigenous people who have relationships in this land. We also acknowledge the decades of historical trauma, loss, and grief experienced by Indigenous people. It is our promise to not only recognize the truths, but also to take action to show support of our Indigenous elders, neighbors, and friends, and understand our place within the past, present, and future of this land. We know this is just one step in recognizing and honoring the sovereignty of tribal nations. So we are pleased to have with us today Kristen Perendo and Casey Goff. For over 18 years, Casey has worked for Community Bakes in a wide range of positions within customer service. She currently works for Franzen Bank and Trust as a retail manager overseeing customer service staff for 2 of their locations, Cloquet and Superior. When she's not working, Casey stays busy with her husband and their 4 kids on their little hobby farm in rural Minnesota. She's an avid sports fan, enjoys volunteering at community events, and she is always grateful for a beautiful sunrise. We also have Kristen, and she is in the elder law lead attorney for Justice North out of the Duluth office, but she covers the entire 11 county Justice North region. She graduated from Mitchell Hamlin College of Law in 2001, and Kristen lives in her childhood hometown of Esco, Minnesota, where she and her family raise cows and chickens for fun. So thank you both for being with us today, and I will turn it over to Kristen to start today's presentation.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much. Casey, did you want to start first or me? I just want to make sure I'm not. I thought I was going second, but it's okay with me either way.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Alrighty. So thank you all for coming. And I'm from Justice North. Let's dive into aging solo, making a plan for navigating the future. Next slide. Alrighty. So this is what I want to talk about today. It's going to be about an hour, but we can make it shorter if we need. I want to talk about what does it mean to be an aging solo person. And even though there's many in the United States, there's plans for everybody, and nobody's going to have a one-size-fits-all plan. But everybody's going to use similar tools to get to that plan that fits them the most. And the tools we're going to talk about are tools that we use for using during your lifetime, like power of attorneys, trusts, healthcare directive, Pulse. And then for long-term care plans, how do you pay for that? And then after death planning, the tools are like beneficiary designations, trusts, wills. And then just a little bit, I'm going to talk about developing a community and a team that can help use those legal tools that you get into place. So that seems like a lot. We're going to cover a lot, and keep in mind if you have any questions after I talk or later on in the future, you can always contact me and I can answer them. And my contact information will be at the end. Alrighty, let's dive into the first slide. Next slide, please. And I always put this on here. This is our map of our service area, so I don't forget to tell everybody that we are here to help in civil legal matters for those who are low income and those who are 60 years of age or older, because we are one of the Title III grant recipients and are very fortunate to be able to provide legal services to anybody 60 or older who happens to be in this service area. We're free. We don't charge our clients. We do take donations if they're able to do that, but that's certainly voluntary. Like I said, we cover civil law, which is a whole wide world of stuff. So what we focus on is housing, income stability, safety. So if you've got, you can think of all those things, like if you're getting kicked out of your housing, if you lost benefits, lost income, if you're in a not safe situation, you want tools to deal with that, like OFP, like order for protections or harassment restraining orders, all those things we will do. And if there's something that you think we might not do, please call, because we can either, we might be able to take it, or we'll get you to the right place that can help you. We can do warm referrals. All right, let's move on. So solo aging, what is it? Solo aging is when you are living by yourself, or either single by choice, or you are a surviving spouse, or maybe your children aren't around for many reasons. Maybe they died before you, or perhaps they live across the country and aren't able to help out, or maybe even people are estranged with them. So, and then the latest Census Bureau says that there's 22.1 million solo agers in the country. And I think that's going to be an increasing number as time goes by because people aren't having children as they did back when the baby boomers were younger. So I think that's going to be a trend that we're going to see more and more of. And hopefully there'll be more systems in place to help people. But this seminar today is going to tell you what you can do now. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I have some examples of what that would look like. People that I see in my practice, we have a lot of widows with no children, and they come to us for planning. Like I said, second partnership with couples. This is a big one. So if you're in a second relationship with somebody, certainly have adult children, you want to do some planning because there are a lot of problems in the future when the adult stepchildren's goals clash with yours. Maybe clash in regards to your partner's care or clash just because you want to be able to continue to see your partner and the children might not want to. And there's tools that can help prevent all those things. And my goal is today, when we go through some of those tools, to kind of give little tidbits of actual stories that I've seen. So it kind of brings them more to life. Disability planning is big. So like if you're a widower and you have an adult child living with you, that's when you want to make sure you have a plan in place to take care of your child. And that might be a trust, something like that. Of course, divorced people with no children, but maybe they have close neighbors. Those neighbors could be part of your team to help in your future plans. All these people, there's common threads to all. They live alone or they expect to live alone. And there's a limited number or nobody there to care for them as they get older. So all of them can use a legal plan to help ensure that they live their goals to the fullest. So let's go to the next slide. There, oh, one more back. Can you go back? Oh, almost. One more forward. Oh, well, I think I might have, you were right the first time. I apologize. I forgot my slides. So legal planning, what's the point of legal planning? Legal planning is so you get to live the way you want to live. So when you do your plan, you want to think of what is my best future? What does it look like? And then you want to put those goals on paper. Like I want to live at home for as long as I can. So how can I get that accomplished? So I want to make sure I have people in place that can take care of my house, for example, when I can't do it, pay my bills for me when I can't do it, those sorts of things. Having the plan, you'll see it's going to automatically reduce your anxiety levels. There's a weight will come off your shoulders and you can enjoy things more. Like I said, you can avoid future challenges, problems that come up. And one of those challenges could be that people might try to do things against your wishes, which I see in my practice happening. And there's things that can be done to prevent them. It's easy to do before it happens. Of course, there's things you can do after it happens, but it's harder. And you can live where you want to live. Age in place. Let's go on to the next slide. So here are the tools. And I know there's a mix of audience members today, so some of this is going to be old hat to you, but I think it's still helpful to go through them so you can just have it as a resource maybe too, to share with people that you work with. You'll see that I'm going to go through and actually look at the document pages and just see what's on there and see what would be most advantageous to people who are planning to be solar agers. So these are I'm actually only going to do power of attorney, healthcare directive, and post. I'm not going to show trust because those are large documents, and there's a good trust going to be custom made to a person. It's not going to be a boilerplate trust. So I'm not that can be its own seminar altogether, and we don't draft them. So power of attorney is for your finances. We're going to talk about that. Everybody has finances and private information. Power of attorney can help you get that. But you also have your own person. So the tools that help you make sure that you get to live where you get to live or want to live, get the treatment you want or don't want, those are the healthcare directive and the post. Post is a traveling medical order, and I'll show you that later. Finally, a big piece for successful solo aging is planning for long-term care. Who's going to pay for it and where is it going to happen? And how are we going to get there? So let's go to the next slide. Alrighty, so don't panic. All my slides are not going to look like this. I just wanted to put most of all the main information on one slide for each of these documents. So you can, maybe you can print it out later or you can just refer to it as a resource. So why do we have power of attorneys in the first place? Well, power of attorneys are the tool to avoid conservatorships. So if you don't want somebody to petition the court to take control over your money and your property, you want to have a power of attorney, because the court is loath to get rid of, is they don't want to do guardianship and conservatorship if there's already stuff in place that can do the same thing that doesn't take away your rights. So they like power of attorney and healthcare directives. Sometimes it doesn't work, and then the court has to step in. So avoid conservatorship. It allows others to take over and handle your finances and pay your bills. But another thing that people don't realize how useful a power of attorney is often is to get that private information. So for example, my mom shared her power of attorney with me, so I'm her attorney, in fact, is the correct term. So with that power of attorney, I can go to any place that holds her private information and they have to tell me. Well, I could go to her insurance company and get the information about that, or go to anybody she's doing business with and get information. So there in Minnesota, on the next column, there's two types of power of attorneys. There's the one that everybody uses. It's called the statutory short form power of attorney. And then everything else is called a common law power of attorney. You can have both at the same time. They both are used for different purposes. Everybody has a need for statutory short form power of attorney because everybody has information, everybody has financial things that they need to do. Not everybody needs a common law power of attorney. A common law power of attorney, in my mind, is for people who have large assets and plans to do something with them that the statutory short form will not allow their agent to do. So, and you'll see in the power of attorney form some of that limitation, what those limitations are. Also, the statutory short form power of attorney is very useful because it comes with a whole chapter of statutes that you as the principal can use to enforce it. So for example, if your person who is your attorney in fact goes to do something for you and that whoever she's in front of won't do it, won't honor the power of attorney, you can take some action. You'll have some statutes to back you up. Also, if you have a power of attorney and your person is not doing things correctly, you can go to court and use those statutes and get a protective action to force that force your person to give you an accounting of what they've done for you. So that chapter is very useful. With the common law power of attorney, all you have is the case law, whatever case law came up through history to talk about powers of attorney. So people who is on a power of attorney. So the principal is the person who wants the power of attorney, who wants to share their authority. They're not giving up any of their authority, they're just sharing it. In this situation, it's the solo ager. And the other person on the document is going to be the attorney in fact. That's the technical term for your agent, your power of attorney agent. I had one person that named me as their attorney in fact because I was the only attorney they knew. but it doesn't mean an attorney at law. Attorney in fact is just a fancy old school name for an agent, somebody that you choose to step into your shoes. And you'll see on the power of attorney form, there's only really 5 decisions to make. So number 1, who are you going to choose to step into your shoes? What powers are you going to share with them? Should that power of attorney document be durable? And it should be durable because you're using planning in the future. You want it to continue to be effective when you become incapacitated. That's what durable means. Then the next decision is, are you going to allow transfers or gifts to your attorney in fact, or to anybody they have a duty to take care of? And what kind of schedule of accountings do you want to have to provide principal? So those are the 5 decisions. And you don't need a draft a power of attorney, although people often go to attorneys to do it. You can do it on your own. There's nothing magic about having an attorney, although an attorney can give you a lot of advice about your choices that you're making, and make sure that it's drafted and signed correctly. But it's not hard. Let's go to the next slide. Alrighty, so here's the front page. Now this is, you'll see on the top, it says statutory short form power of attorney. That's what you want. Oh, I almost forgot. So with the statutory short form power of attorney, you have to use the form as you get it. You can't alter it. So if you alter it in any way, it kicks it into the common law category, common law power of attorney, and then you don't get any of the statutes to back it up. So don't alter the form. Now the form can look different because fonts, people can change fonts and things, but the meat of it, it's all going to be the same. So don't cross off things and write things like in there to add things, because that'll make it into a common law. So I highlighted the principal. That's where the solo ager puts their name and address. And then attorneys in fact are on the left-hand column. Often you can have more than one person here. So you don't just have to have one. If you have more than one, you have to decide how are you going to break a disagreement. So they can either act independently or they can act jointly. And also you got to trust them. If you don't trust them, you want to make sure that they're acting jointly. But then that in itself creates a problem, because jointly is kind of a hassle to do, because you have to, when your person needs to sign something, then the other person also has to sign it. It's just sometimes can be hard to work. But so my opinion is, if you don't trust them enough to act independently, maybe not have them as your attorney in fact. But it's your document, you get to do what you want. You can also have people as backup attorneys in fact, so they can take over when the primary ones can't or won't for whatever reason. I got clients who have many, well, you don't have to, they often ask, does my person have to live locally to be my attorney in fact? And they do not have to live locally. They can live far away and still be your attorney in fact. A lot of things can be done electronically nowadays, so don't let that stop you. If you got a really good person who's willing to act and is able to do it, name them on there, even if they live far away. You see on the bottom, for planning purposes, you don't know when your person's going to use it, so you want to put none under expiration date. Let's go to the next page. Alrighty, so here we go. We see the second and third decision. What kind of powers are you sharing? And do you want it to be durable? So you can see that this form covers all different sorts of situations, and it's meant to, because people use it for all certain things, all kinds of stuff, and sometimes they use it for just one thing and then they revoke their power of attorney. But for planning purposes, you want it to be open-ended as much as possible and continue to be effective. So most people, to do that, you want to check N, all the powers listed, and then you want to make it durable so it continues to be effective if this solo ager becomes not capable of doing things. And I want to point out that the solo ager is sharing power. They're not giving up anything. So the solo ager should talk to the person they want to name and get a feel for how hungry they're going to be to start making changes in the solo ager's life, because they're not supposed to. They're supposed to follow the solo ager's wishes. And if they don't know what those wishes are, they have to act as a reasonably prudent person would in that situation. So it's not, they can't run in and change the solo ager's life. They can't say, you shouldn't be spending your money that way. I'm not going to do it for you. They would not be a good choice. And if they've already been chosen, then probably should revoke it and make a new one with somebody else. So talk to them first to see if they're willing to act and willing to not go over their boundaries as the power of attorney. Let's go to the next slide. All right, I'm cruising through it. So these are the last two decisions to make. So should the attorney in fact be able to transfer your property, your money to themselves or to somebody they have a duty to support? Now, why would you want to do this? Sometimes people have a history of making gifts to family members or to friends, in this situation, friends. So let's say the solo ager lives next door to very close friends and neighbors, and they've given gifts to the children that live there every holiday season, and they want to continue to do that. And they want to do that even if they become incapacitated. So they would check off that they authorize their attorney in fact to make gifts. Because then, because if the neighbor is the attorney in fact, they have a natural duty to take care of their children. So if they don't, solo ager does not check off, I authorize them to do that, then they can't do it. So that would be one reason to check it off. And the current limit per year is $18,000 per individual. It's tied to the tax exclusion. So here is one of those limitations where if you have a large amount of money or property, this limitation is going to stop you from doing some bigger planning, bigger transfers and transactions that you would like a person to do for you if you're incapacitated. So if you fall into that category, you would probably want to have a common law power of attorney as well. So common law power of attorney, you can custom make, and you can say what your attorney in fact can do. So your attorney in fact would use that document's authority to do that transaction rather than the statutory short form. But the rich person should also have the statutory form as well, because it's recognizable and it's good for lots of other. Finally, the fourth decision is basically a paperwork decision. You as a solo ager have a right to know what your person is doing on your behalf. So you can ask for an accounting. You can create it so they have to do one on a regular basis. That would be the second one there, where they have to do a monthly, quarterly, annual accounting, for example. Or if they pick the first one, they have to when they are asked to provide one. Sometimes for the most part, in my opinion, because you don't know when it's going to be used, it might be better to use the first option where they provide an accounting when you ask for it, rather than on a scheduled basis, because the scheduled accountings will say, I haven't used the power of attorney, and they might have to do that for a long time. Might be a hassle for your attorney, in fact, but you can do it however you wish because it's your document. And doing it on a schedule too is good because it keeps everybody in the mindset that this is an important role and something that they can't steal money. If you don't trust somebody, you want them to give you a regular accounting. But again, are they the best person to choose? It's up to you. And then you sign it in front of a notary. I cut off the notary public stuff on the bottom because it didn't fit. And then the principal also puts their initials on the fourth page that they read this notice. And the notice is everything that I've been talking about today. You're not giving up any of your rights, that type of thing. So let's go to the next page. All right, this is it, the final one. So this is where your attorney-in-fact signs. So they have to sign two places. The first place is that they read a notice on the form saying that they can't steal from you, they have to act for you, that sort of thing. And then they sign where it says specimen signature. Now this form changed in, I believe, 2014 to add that first signature space, and so that's why attorney-in-fact have to sign in two spots. So you just have to go with it. They didn't change the form, and you can't change the form. So, but the good thing is they don't have to sign in front of a notary. And the draft person's box there is important to fill out. So whoever fills out the document, whether it be the solo ager themselves or somebody else, their name and address should go there. It's important because if you were ever to meet, if your attorney-in-fact was ever to have to record something with the recorder's office, it has to have the draft person box filled out. Otherwise, it's not recordable. Alrighty, let's go to the next slide. And we're doing good on time, actually. Alrighty, so let's say you got it done, everything was going all along fine, and then until it didn't, and you want to revoke your power of attorney. This is how you do it. You have to sign a revocation in front of a notary, and then you have to give it to your attorney-in-fact. So they have to have actual knowledge that it's been revoked. A good practice is also to give the revocation to whoever you think might also have gotten it in the past, like your bank or something like that. So they know that this person is not authorized to act anymore. Please note that it's automatically revoked if you get divorced, and it's automatically revoked when you die. It does not survive your death. So your attorney-in-fact has no authority under power of attorney to wrap up your estate, because that power of attorney is automatically revoked. I should note the capacity is the same to revoke as it is to create it. So in the capacity to do a power of attorney is the contractual capacity. So do you understand the nature and effect of what you're doing, what you're signing? The next, I have a little box here about be aware of a potential problem. When you revoke a power of attorney, your person who was your attorney-in-fact might try to file a petition for conservatorship or guardian, because they might want to have some control. Maybe they think that you're not able to handle your affairs anymore, or maybe it's more nefarious. But if whatever the case is, if you don't want that to happen, I would recommend that you have a healthcare directive naming somebody else as your healthcare agent, because there's a Minnesota statute, a different statute that says if a court says you need a guardianship or conservatorship, but there is a healthcare agent, they're going to presume that you want that person to act as your conservator or guardian. So that kind of slips your person in the role of authority rather than your ex-attorney-in-fact. So it's a really good tool to have that healthcare agent in place. So that might be a good reason why they're two different people. But I don't think a lot of people think of it that way. I think people choose because people have different strengths. Some people are good with paper and numbers, organization. Some people are better with personal stuff about care and talking to doctors and healthcare providers, which is all good. But just keep in mind, your healthcare agent can be put in place of a guardian instead of somebody else who's petitioning. Alrighty, let's go to the next slide. I put there just so people know the best way to sign if you're acting as an attorney in fact. So some people sign it just power of attorney for, but this is actually the best way because it shows that you're signing for the principal. So the principal's name goes first by his attorney in fact, and then that attorney in fact's name. So John Doe is the principal in this example. Jill Smith is the attorney in fact. She's stepping into his shoes, and that's why his name should be first. That limits her liability. She should not have any personal liability because she's acting as his fiduciary. And it's especially you want to be careful acting as a power of attorney for somebody, because if you don't sign it correctly to make sure it's indicated that you're acting in this role, sometimes places try to hold you accountable just because you're acting as a power of attorney. So you want to sign it correctly, and you don't want to directly make yourself liable either. Let's go to the next slide. Alrighty, look at this. We're cruising. So this is the only other main document. Pulse is going to go quicker. So healthcare directive. This is another slide that looks like, there's too much stuff. But this is like a landing point where it has a bunch of important stuff that you can just refer to this if you have to. So why do we have healthcare directives? To avoid guardianships. That's what you want it for. You want to control your life the best you can. You want to have somebody in place that does what you want, that you don't have any court involved in looking over your shoulder. You want to have a healthcare agent so they can step in when you can't make your decisions or communicate anymore. It's triggered when your doctor says you can no longer communicate your wishes or understand your healthcare options. Until that happens, people are going to come to you and ask you what you want for your healthcare. Another benefit of having a healthcare directive, though, is getting that healthcare information, the medical record. In Minnesota, a Minnesota healthcare agent has a right to your medical record. Sometimes health facilities don't automatically come to that conclusion. They'll say, well, that's HIPAA law, but state law allows it. If you're worried about it, you can also have a HIPAA proxy made. So you can have somebody be your HIPAA person. I didn't include it on here because we have limited time. Just a one-page thing. It's okay to do that as well. But a healthcare directive, it's also good for a funeral directive. So you can add things in there that take place after you die. So just like a power of attorney has things when you're alive, it doesn't work when you're dead. Healthcare directive straddles it. So it's useful when you're alive and when you're dead if you've got the funeral directive information in there. That's where am I going to get buried? Do I want to be cremated? Organ donation, that sort of thing. And in Minnesota, it's covered by Chapter 145C. And it's nice because it presumes a person has the capacity to do a healthcare directive, unless there's clear and convincing evidence otherwise. And clear and convincing is the highest standard of proof in law, in civil law. And that's, somebody's really got to say that you don't understand what you're doing when you do a healthcare directive in order to stop it. Unlike a power of attorney where you have to follow the form, you can't change the form at all. Healthcare directive is loosey-goosey. You can write it on a napkin if you wanted to, and that'd be good as long as it has the things on it that it needs to be a valid healthcare directive. And that means you gotta have a section where you name somebody or an instruction section or both. So those are the two sections, and then you sign it correctly. So you either sign it in front of a notary or two witnesses. We've had a situation come up in the past where somebody had their witnesses, their agents sign as their two witnesses. And that was a big problem because that's an invalid healthcare directive. So then there was nothing in place. So then in that situation, they would have to file for or guardianship, which is a shame if that person could no longer do a healthcare directive. So who are the people on a healthcare directive? Let's talk about the principal. That's the solo ager. I already talked about when it's triggered. Healthcare agent is somebody that they want to step into their shoes to make their healthcare decisions. And that's decisions about where I'm going to get the care, who my doctors are, where I'm going to live, what kind of treatment I'm going to get, all that sort of thing that comes with taking care of your person. You'll see that in a healthcare directive, well, not the one I put on there, but in a longer version, you can limit those powers. For example, if you don't want your healthcare agents to decide where you live, you can limit it. Say, I don't want them to do that. If you want to expand, you can do that as well. You can say, I know this healthcare directive under law is automatically void if I get divorced, but me and my spouse are very close. I want her to be my agent, even if we get divorced. So you can expand the powers that way. You can expand it by getting mental health treatment with neuroleptic drugs and electroshock therapy. You can also expand it to funeral powers. See what the decisions are basically those ones on the right hand side. Who do I want to step into those shoes? What skills do they have? Are they going to be able to stand up to those doctors and tell them what I want? And to other people in my life that might disagree with my wishes. What powers I want to share with them? Are there extra powers or limits? Do I want it to be a funeral directive and organ donation instructions? So that you can have a little blurb about your healthcare wishes, like your philosophy, but you can also have a big worksheet. You can have a big, you can expand on that and attach it to your healthcare directive as well. And then think about who's going to witness the signature. It's often pretty easy to get a notary, and that's probably better to do. Then you don't have to worry about, is the witness my agent? Or is my witness a healthcare provider? Only one can be a healthcare provider. So notary public is often easier. Let's go see what it looks like. Let's go to the next slide. Alrighty, so I got a one-page healthcare directive here. This is the honoring choices version. You can see that it says short form. This is the very basics. You put your name on the top. You name a healthcare agent, one or two. And there's a spot for instructions about healthcare, and you sign it, either in front of a notary or two witnesses. That's the basic bare bones, which is good. Oftentimes people don't do these at all. So this is good to have. But if you want to have more instructions for your healthcare agent and your healthcare providers, you can do a bigger form. And some of those places that you can get them are the University of Minnesota has a packet. The Honoring Choices has a longer version, 5 wishes. Other place you can create one yourself. You can go to a private attorney that can draft one for you. I want to point out this website, lawhelpmin.org. We're affiliated with them. They're our statewide coalition of legal services organizations, but they have a really nifty computer program. You go to that website and you type in power of attorney, and there's a do-it-yourself or power of attorney and healthcare directive choice. And you choose healthcare directive, for example, and it asks you questions, and you type it in, and at the end, it spits out a completed healthcare directive, and then you just go take it and sign it either in front of a notary or two witnesses. And then it doesn't save it. None of your private information is there. So it's a good thing to look at if you want to go that route. But you don't need to do it that way. You can go to a private attorney. You can do it on your own. A good thing to do is, though, to talk to your proposed people beforehand to make sure if they're willing to do it. and willing to follow your instructions. Sometimes they're not willing. And if they're not, then you want to look at somebody else. Alrighty, let's go to the next slide. So what happens if you want to revoke it? So let's say time goes by, say 10 years goes by, and 10 years is a good time to review your legal documents. And let's say your views on certain treatments have changed. So you want to make a new healthcare directive. How do you do it? So just by creating a new healthcare directive, that revokes the prior healthcare directive. So in that situation, making a new one is probably the best, because you have certain viewpoints, get them on paper and have that new one. But you can also destroy it. You can do a signed and dated revocation, kind of like the power of attorney revocation. You can tell two people, and those two people don't have to be be in front of you at the same time. This could be like if you're in a hospital and you change your mind about something. If you get divorced, or you die, that can be a revocation. Now, keep in mind, if your healthcare directive has powers that survive your death, those powers will continue. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so PULSE. This is a very useful document. PULSE stand for Provider Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. So you want to think of these as like a traveling medical order, like a doctor's order that you have at home or wherever you are out in the community. And they're for people who are not expected to live more than 1 or 2 years. So it's not for everybody. It's for people who want to make sure that first responders do what they want if somebody calls 911. So they can do things like, you can choose things like CPR or no CPR. You can have, tell them if you want full treatment, selective treatment, or comfort-focused treatment. So full treatment is just like a standard. Somebody calls 911. Their first responders are going to come out there. They're going to get you stabilized and get you to the hospital. They're going to do everything for you. Selective treatment is where if you're suffering from something that is new and can be treated, like if let's say you have a terminal condition, but you just fell and broke your arm, your arm can be treated. So selective treatment would still treat that. And of course, comfort-focused treatment, they would make sure your arm is not painful, but maybe they wouldn't do everything they could for it. And maybe that's not a good example, but you get the point. Comfort focus is they're not going to do invasive treatment that you don't want. So I'm thinking about intubations and those sorts, and CPR, that type of thing. Because CPR, when you do CPR, everybody knows you got to press really hard on somebody's rib cage, and people's ribs are going to be broken. And if you're on comfort focused treatment, they're not going to do that. The PULSE isn't really based in any statutes or common law, really. It's based on agreements between healthcare providers and so the doctors, first responders, it just kind of naturally grew up over time. And the people in the document, the principal is the solo ager who wants their wishes followed when the first responders come. Their signature isn't necessary, but it's good if they can sign it. It's only done after consultation with the solo agers healthcare providers, and that's going to be either the doctor, physician's assistants, or advanced practice registered nurse. And then those folks sign. They're going to be your wishes, but the healthcare provider's signature.
think she might have froze. Let's see if we can get her back here. Casey, do you feel okay starting yours while we wait for her to get back on and then we can have her come on the end?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
All right, I'll skip over to your slides here. Sorry for the technical difficulty, guys. Thanks for being patient. So this is Casey, and I'll let her do her. Oh, Kristen's back.
Perfect.
Sorry about that, everybody.
That's all right. We're glad you got back in. I'll move
Me
back to
too.
your slides here.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Which one were you
All
on?
right, we
I'm
can go to the
sorry.
next slide.
This
We can be on this one. Yeah. Oops. Here's what the post looks like. So it's a 2-page document, and you can see there on the section C and D, the doctor signs that's required, but the solo ager does not have to sign it, but it's recommended. And you can see that on section A talks about CPR and DNRs. And then there's the type of medical treatment in section B. You can kind of get a sense of what selective treatment would be used for and comfort focused treatment. And then D, you can talk about feeding tubes and antibiotics and other things that you don't want to have or do want to have. And this is for people who have a serious medical condition, who have a 1 to 2 year life expectancy. All right, let's go on to the next. So as a solo ager, long-term care is going to come into your life at some point. So planning, you want to know how Medicare and medical assistance work, how they work together. Medicare does not pay for long-term care. So if you needed to go onto long-term care, either at home or in a nursing home, Medicare is not going to pay. So you're going to have to know if you have enough money to privately pay, or if you're going to need to apply for medical assistance. Most people are going to have to apply for medical assistance because healthcare is expensive. So that means if you're a solo ager and you have certain things that you want certain people to get during your lifetime, you want to do it. You want to do gifting earlier than later. To outlast the 5-year look back period, you want to do it more than 5 years before getting onto long-term care. So planning ahead early is really good in that circumstance. For example, if you want to make sure that your house is avoids probate and goes to your person that you want it to go to, you could name them as a joint tenant, for example, with rights of survivorship, or you could do a life estate and name them as a remainder person. Doing that avoids probate, but it also is a gift to that person because they get an interest in your home. And the medical assistance will make you ineligible because of that if you apply within 5 years. So plan ahead. Think about, what do I want to happen to my house? Do I want to avoid probate? Where do I want to get that care? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you don't care if it has to get sold, and then you use your proceeds to pay for your care. Think about where you'd like to get care. Up in your house, in an apartment, assisted living, nursing home. People often use assisted living facilities, which is great, but there are some big cautions you want to be aware of with assisted living facilities. They will, at some point, if your care gets to be too much for them, they will terminate the contract and you'll have to find somewhere else to move to. other assisted livings might not accept medical assistance. They don't have to accept medical assistance. Those that do get medical assistance, once you're on it, they will want you to transfer to a smaller unit. So we want to be aware of all those things. And if you don't want that to happen, you can plan for something different. Sometimes people want to get services in their home, but they live in a rural place. You're going to have a hard time finding services to come to your location in that case sometimes, because they're a limited resource. So there are ways that if you have a trusted person who's able to provide you care, you could pay them to do it and still be okay for medical assistance. And that was the subject of my last presentation. So you can pay relatives, but if you're a solo ager, you can also pay private people. You can get them licensed under the county rules. And medical assistance, you can also pay within 60 days of the service. Talk to an elder law attorney before doing any of this, because you want to have it in writing so you can prove these things were not gifts should you apply for medical assistance in the future. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so after death planning, what do we do? So you can either have beneficiaries on it to avoid probate, or you have a will that can tell the probate court where you want your things to go. Or you can have a trust that does the same thing. Talk about a trust. Let's go to the next slide. So I don't see my typo there anymore. So when does probate court happen? Oftentimes people don't know what happens after you die. So if you're a solo ager with a probate estate that has real estate in the solo ager's name only, that has to go through probate. There's no avoiding it. You got to go through probate to clear title. If you have titled personal property totaling more than $75,000, then go through probate. So titled personal property are things like bank accounts, stocks, things that have a title with your name on it. So that's one way that probate happens. Another thing that probate happens is if somebody files for probate. For example, if you have a creditor that thinks you have an estate, they can file for probate and open one. I put a note here just to point out that a will does not probate. That's a common thought, but a will, when it's used, is used in probate court. It's just instructions to the court of where you want your estate to be distributed after your debts are paid. So I have here on the right-hand side what you can do to avoid probate if that's part of your plan. So if you can reduce your probate estate to less than $75,000 or have real estate that's not in your name only, then your probate estate is either not big enough because it's titled personal property under $75,000, or there's no real estate. So probate's not needed. So if you have like say $50,000 of total personal property, probate's not needed. What a person could do would be an affidavit of collection of personal property. That would be a successor in interest. There's going to be some kind of successor in interest, but it might be a family member that's really far away, down the line of relation to you. So that might not be what you want either. So in that case, you might want to have a will that will say where it goes. Or if you will still want to avoid probate, you can have a trust that says what happens to the things that you have when you die, or you can name that person as a beneficiary and those items. You can go to the bank and get a payable on death beneficiary form to fill out for accounts. Same thing with stocks. It's called a transferable on death beneficiary. You can name somebody on your house as a transfer on death deed beneficiary. So all those things are good. Just depends on what your goal is as a solo ager. If you're worried about having to be having to sell your house before you die, naming a beneficiary isn't going to solve that problem. So you'd have to do something else. All this comes down to is think about what your goals are, both during lifetime and after death, and then go talk to somebody who can help you draft the tools to do the things you want them to do. So let's go to the next slide. So I just put this here just as a little demonstration of how wills and beneficiary designations are different. And again, medical assistance always raises its head in every situation. So I put that there as well. So wills do not avoid probate, where beneficiaries do. For both of them, the solo ager can change at any time during their lifetime. With a will, the solo ager can have instructions. With beneficiaries, there's no instructions to beneficiary, they just get it. A will could be more expensive, take more time, but a simple will doesn't take a whole lot of time either. But probate does take time and there could be a cost. With beneficiary designations, it's less expensive. It's a form you fill out and it automatically goes without having any court time. With both having a will and a beneficiary, it doesn't change your ownership of the asset. So it's still considered available to you under the medical assistance rules. So it could be counted and then you'd have to spend it down in order to become eligible. So let's go to the next slide. So going beyond legal planning. So a solo ager really is on their own unless they build a community and develop a team. So community takes time. And I just read a stat about how long it takes time to make a good friend, but now I don't remember how many hours it takes. But you want to develop friends of all ages, where you can find people. You could volunteer, find like-minded people that might have the same interests, any type of affinity group that you might be involved in, or a religious community. Support groups could be good. There are some nonprofits developing programs nationwide to help build villages, virtual villages for people. I think this might be something that will be more common as more people become solo agers. There's going to be a bigger group of people doing it. But for all practical purposes right now, it's really a solo ager's task to do on their own to try to build that community. You want to develop a team that when the time comes are willing and able to use your tools that you've planned for and you've created. You want to have people in mind that can come onto your team if there ever becomes a problem, like an elder law attorney. They can help you create the plan and you come back if there becomes a problem. You want to choose your people to be your power of attorney, your healthcare agent, and your caregivers if possible. Develop a relationship with your local banker, financial planner. And if all else fails, you can hire professional people to take care of your finances. And you can hire professional caregivers too, but there's a finite resource for caregivers. So I wouldn't rely on that. I'd want to have backup plans for that. So let's see, I think that's can we go to the next slide? I think that's the end. I just want to, I didn't talk about medical assistance real quick. Develop somebody on your team that if you go into long-term care and you need to apply for medical assistance, you want somebody to help you do that application, because then if it gets denied, you can make sure it gets appealed. Because we had a client who was in that situation and nobody was there to keep tabs and she didn't appeal and nobody was paying for her care and the bill got racked up really high and then she faced a discharge. So you want to have somebody that can walk with you in your healthcare journey to make sure that everything is in place and can be there if there's a problem. And I'm going to stop talking so Casey can go next. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation, Kristen. I'm Casey Goff. I'm going to be talking today about some tips for maintaining your financial independence. When the Arrowhead AAA reached out to me about some ideas, Brenda connected with me, and I thought there were a few things that we could talk about that we see in our industry that would be very helpful to those folks living independently in their later years, and ways that they can really truly maintain that independence. So we can go to the next slide. I have three key things that I've seen in my career that impact people that are living on their own, and it's budgeting to your monthly income, avoid assisting other adults financially, and being aware of fraud. So we're going to dive into each one of these a little bit. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. So budget to your monthly income. A really good guideline is spending no more than 70% of your monthly income and saving at least 30%. We have to look at your types of expenses versus your income. So of course we have fixed expenses such as housing, medical insurance premiums, fixed debit payments like a car payment. You have flexible expenses, your food, utilities, transportation, periodic expenses such as home and car insurance, repairs and maintenance, and property taxes. And then you have discretionary expenses, clothing, entertainment, your charitable giving. You really have to spend some time and consider each of these. And we've run into issues with folks where maybe their discretionary expenses are starting to creep up. Maybe they're buying a few more items than they really can, and then all of a sudden it gets harder to buy food when you're buying clothing or spending a lot of money on entertainment. Even charitable giving. I've worked with a client one time that we sat down and looked at budget with him, and he was giving a lot of funds to nonprofits, which is a fantastic thing to do, but it wasn't allowing him to live in a very healthy manner. So we did look at reducing those to get him back on track. It did not make him less of a person. It did not make him any less passionate about those institutions, but where he was at with his income at that time, we just had to look at reducing that number. He was still very involved. And of course, nonprofits are always going to be generous of any donation they receive. So it's just an example of something that we looked at for him. I've also looked at those flexible expenses with folks many times before. There are different utilities, the services that they're using. Some of them have a lot of add-ons that maybe they're not utilizing. And then that kind of wraps into, again, the discretionary expenses where we see people that maybe have a lot of streaming services. How many do you really need? What shows may you be watching? And do you really need to have 5 subscriptions, or can you have 3? So we really dive into a lot of that with folks in the banking industry. So helping you navigate that so you are able to save some money for those emergency expenses that happen in life, because they do across all ages. So there are numerous resources available to help budget. So don't be afraid to ask for help. You can get professional guidance at no cost. There are, again, a ton of resources within our area, and really start with your banker. Like I said, I've sat down with many folks and we've discussed budgets inside and out. Sometimes it's just maybe the place that they're living is too expensive, or maybe they don't need certain things that they are paying for. And again, the discretionary expenses is really one that seems to creep up. But those flexible expenses now in recent years have been an issue too, with utilities, food, and even transportation costs escalating. So it can be difficult to navigate, but you are not in the minority. You're not alone in that. And there are a lot of skilled people out there that are willing to help you discuss those. And again, starting with a banker is a great idea. They can look at your accounts, help you figure those items out. So budgeting is a huge part of maintaining your independence as you grow older. You can go to the next slide. This one can be kind of a sensitive topic for folks, but avoid assisting other adults financially. The monthly income we have in our later years is comprised of sources like Social Security, pension, and investment returns. These are designed to support an individual, not multiple parties. Those funds are supposed to be for you to live on. So it can be challenging when a close friend or family member comes and they need financial assistance. But you have to understand that it's not your responsibility to provide them monetary assistance. If you have the ability, it's one thing to help somebody out, but you cannot take that responsibility on if you are already at that budget point where maybe you aren't able to save that 30% or you're just barely saving it. You have to be very careful with how much you're going to help other people. So for you to maintain your financial independence, you must advocate for yourself and guide anyone looking for financial help to the same methods and resources you have. Again, bankers, there are tons of programs from nonprofits and municipalities, counties that will help. So that person might just need a little guidance, and maybe you can provide that to them. But I really just, this is one thing that we do see quite a bit is as you're aging, you have a child or a grandchild or a close friend that has come on a hard time, they need car repairs, something medical, and you really want to help. You just have to remember it's not your responsibility to do that. If you have the ability, that is a different story. You know, you can certainly help. But you just have to be very cautious and careful and know that you still have to get through your day-to-day at the end of it. So you don't want to do anything that's going to strain your situation to help somebody else in their time of need, because there are resources for that other person as well. We can go to the next slide. Being aware of fraud. Fraud definitely plagues our communities, and it's important to be able to identify when someone's trying to extort funds from you. In a high percentage of cases, once you have sent funds to a fraudster, there's no getting them back. They often attack our emotions, and they can hit you with a traumatic experience or threatening behavior to get you to empathize with them so that you can send them funds. I'm going to just talk about kind of the three big ones that we see on a regular basis in the financial industry. Number one is the romance scam. Fraudsters create fake profiles on social media to connect with people. When they get you to accept their friend request, they begin to work on building your trust. Once they have your trust, they will suddenly have an emergency they need money for. I've seen this where it's been a partner and, you know, the person is very well convinced that that person is their long lost love. And, you know, as soon as things work out, they're going to get them here and they're going to get married and live happily ever after. But, you know, they've got this issue going on and I need to send them some funds to help with that. And once I do that, then they'll be able to come and stay with me. Then they'll be able to come in and then I can invite them to our area and they'll live with us and we'll be able to get married. It's a very rare occasion that's really what's going on. Usually who you're talking to is, again, it's a fake profile. The picture does not match who's typing to you. It's unfortunate, but this is something that we see a lot of. We've had to stop a lot of customers from sending a lot of funds. And sometimes we don't catch it till it's too late because that person has maybe been deceptive. Our customer maybe has been deceptive on saying what they're doing with the funds that they might be taking out of their account. And by the time we catch on, sometimes they've already sent a significant amount of money. So that's one. Romance, they call them romance scams. They are very popular. And again, Instagram, Facebook, those types of sites where we think we're connecting with old friends or even new friends in groups that you meet. It can go sideways in a hurry. So just, again, be very cautious of that. Another one we see still is the family member in trouble. You get a call from a family member. They don't want to tell you, they don't want you to tell anyone what's going on. And they need money to get out of trouble right now. We've had it where a gentleman, his son was living on the East Coast. He gets a call and says, "Dad, I'm in big trouble. I was sick. I took some cough medicine. I fell asleep at the wheel. I crashed into a vehicle, and this lady and her unborn child ended up dying. I'm in jail. I need you to send me money right now, but please don't tell anybody about it." The gentleman, our customer, came in. Our customer service rep felt something was off because they were trying to wire money over to, somewhere on the East Coast. So she involved me. I sat them down, and they didn't want to tell me what was going on at first. And finally they did. And they told me about the son and the accident. And, and I asked some questions back. How did he contact you? Well, he's not allowed to have a phone, so he used somebody else's phone from the prison or from the jail. Well, that's interesting. Usually if you're going to get a call from somebody in jail, it's going to be from the jail. And well, this is different. And, he just really needs our help. We got to get him out of trouble. He's being faced with these manslaughter charges. And they were very panicked and concerned for their child. And again, I kind of pushed back with some more questions. And I said, I really think have you verified with the police station or the jail that he's there? And they hadn't done that. And I said, it might be a good idea for you to talk with our local police department to see if they can connect with them and help you gather that information if your son is really in jail. I'm going to be honest, they were mad. They were very mad with me that I would not send that money right then and there to that person. And, they begrudgingly left my office and went and talked to the police. They came back about an hour later and in tears, thanking me because it was a scam. They got a hold of their son on his actual phone. The police department wasn't able to connect with, or when they connected the police department out east where the son said he was, they couldn't confirm that he was in jail at all, but they got a hold of him. It was a scam. It happens. It was very traumatic for them. Like I said, they were even frustrated with me because they didn't feel I was listening to them and hearing their need. But what I was seeing was a pattern of a scam that happens. So those certainly happen, and it's typically somebody's in jail or they're in the hospital, and you have to send money, and you send it now, and they want it wired, or sometimes they want cash. They want you to mail a whole bunch of cash. They want you to overnight it to them so it gets right to them right away. Then they can get it to their attorney, and their attorney can get them out of jail. I mean, the stories get fairly elaborate. That is another one that we still see. It's very common. One of the latest things that we see in the financial institution or industry is the vendor product return. You'll get an email from, say, PayPal or Amazon and say, "Hey, to start your return, please click on this link." And the customer will go, "I haven't started any. I didn't buy anything from Amazon recently." Well, they follow the link, and then pretty soon that link allows somebody who claims they're from Amazon or PayPal to access your computer and say, "Oh, yes, this wasn't you that ordered the $700 worth of product? Well, we better get this return initiated." So they will access the computer and start a return and then key in some misinformation. I had one recently that it was supposed to be for a supposed order that was $430. Well, when the IT assistance that they were receiving keyed in $43,000. Oh, now you're going to get $43,000 in your account. You're going to have to send that back to us. And when you go into the bank, you got to make sure, there's going to be tax implications. So you don't want to talk to the bank about anything. So when you go in to get that money out that we're going to deposit in there, you go ahead and tell them that you're going to buy a car. So we tell them that you're going to buy a car if they ask you any questions. And if they ask you any other questions, once you call us, we're going to be on the phone. You keep your phone in your pocket. And if they ask you any other questions, go ahead and pop outside. We'll help you answer them. And then you can go back and talk to the banker. So these fraudsters will intimidate with They will talk about how, again, there's tax implications, there's legal ramifications. Like if you don't do this right now, you are going to be in trouble. You're going to be arrested. The government's going to seize your assets. I mean, fraudsters have very threatening behavior, but they get you so twisted and turned around that you do fall into that panic and go, oh my gosh, I don't want to be in trouble. I didn't do anything wrong. And they just layer it on, layer after layer. So being aware of some of those things that do happen is very important, because nobody can afford to lose additional funds, right? We have all worked hard for what we have, and especially in our later years, when maybe you are on a very tight budget, you cannot afford for a fraudster to take advantage of you, and they ask some really bizarre things, and in the heat of the moment, you think it's okay because they've panicked you so much. But they'll ask you to, like I said, send cash over in an overnight envelope. They don't want a cashier's check, they want a cash. Or go to the store and buy some gift cards, these Apple gift cards, and then send them to us. That'll help us with the payment on the other end. It makes it easier. Well, they're asking all these crazy requests to mask what they're doing and making it harder for them to be tracked. And folks, unfortunately, do fall for it. Banks across the nation we're pretty well trained on when to identify those things. So if you do have a banker asking questions, it's really for your well-being. We're not trying to be invasive or be judgmental, but we are definitely trying to make sure that you have truly verified all the pieces of information that you have to know that your funds are really truly going where you think they are. But it's, again, they play on the emotions, the traumatic event, the intimidating behaviors to get you to do what they want. But you can always ask your bank questions. Always ask us. We're not there, again, to be judgmental or discriminatory or tell you what you can and can't do with your money. But if something doesn't quite feel right, or you are very panicked, you do need somebody to ask. You have to ask somebody to give you some guidance on if what you're doing is actually valid or not. I've even had the conversation with folks where if it's a scam, you don't know what those funds are being utilized for. Maybe it's for a lavish lifestyle, or maybe somebody is, funding the next terrorist attack or drug trafficking or human trafficking, and they're extorting funds from you to get that process going. And you don't ever want to be involved, in that piece of the puzzle. So I'm a very active person when it comes to talking about fraud, because we do see so many trends, even in our small communities in northern Minnesota. It happens. It happens from a phone call. It happens from an email. You just be very cautious. Know who you're talking to on the other end of things, and do your due diligence to verify that. So we can go to the next slide. So these are just kind of some final tips I have. Like, just if any of these stick out to you, these are things that we literally advise people. These are things that bankers have said in our small offices in Cloquet. So never give out personal identifying information or login information. If you are being asked to lie, the person on the other end is not helping you, and you are not helping them. If they're asking you to lie about your withdrawal that you're making, what they're using the funds for is not a good thing, and it's not going for what you think it is. So never send cash through the mail or an overnight package service. If you desire companionship, join a local club or activity. There's plenty to do in our area and a lot of good people. So surround yourself with good people. And you won't need that companionship online. Be cautious of people reaching out on social media, which kind of ties into that. The government is not coming to arrest you. The many folks have come in believing that they are in serious legal trouble, and the government, the IRS, the U.S. Treasury Department is coming down on them. That's not happening. You will be served legal papers if you were ever in trouble with any of those entities. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If that sweetheart on the other line is telling you you're the only one and you say all the right things and do all the right things, and soon enough we'll be together and we're gonna live happily ever after, and we're gonna have all these funds and do all these things. It's, they're really trying to build your trust and get your hopes up. And unfortunately, most of the time it's fictional. It's not the person think you're talking to. Another thing is hang up the phone and block the number. We have seen numerous times in the office where that fraudster's on the phone with them and we advise them to hang up the phone and they're calling back immediately because they want to tell you that banker is trying to tell you bad things and they're not trying to help you and we need to help you. You need to get these funds to us so we can do X, Y, Z. We just say, hang up the phone, block the number, don't answer numbers that you're not familiar with. If it's important, they're going to leave a voicemail. But once they get you on the phone, then they're really going to fill you up they're going to be persuasive and they're going to try their hardest to get you to do something that you shouldn't do, and that's send funds to somewhere you don't really know where they're going. So I just be very cautious. There are tons of ways that fraudsters reach out. And again, if you can't really verify and vet where the funds are going, you don't send them. And banks are not trying to tell you what you can and can't do with your money, but we are definitely going to be watching out for you the best we can. All right, and that kind of concludes my piece. I just wanted to talk about those few things that can help protect you and some of the trends that we see come through the financial institutions. So that is all I had today. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you both for presenting today. You had a lot of great information. I just want to quick mention that we do have some more upcoming webinars. We have one on April 24th that is about bridging data and community action. We also have a Returnships, a toolkit to build a multi-generational workforce on April 25th, and then Transportation Equity Solutions for All on May 14th. And these are the different places that you can connect with the Quad A. And again, thank you both so much for being here today. We really appreciate your taking the time to present for us. And thank you all for, I'm gonna stop sharing, sorry. Thank you all for who joined us today. We appreciate taking time out of your day to participate in our webinar. Does anybody have any questions? I didn't see anything in the chat. Well, with that, I will end the webinar. Thank you all again.
Thank you very much.